Hi, my name is Daryl, and today what we're going to do is talk a little bit about Jeep Wrangler, both the JK and JL platform, and the common problems that are consistent between the two platforms, as well as kind of what separates the two. And to help us with this, I have my new friend Kevin, who's a service advisor for Chapman Jeep. And so Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Kevin. I work here in Chapman Jeep here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Been with the company probably just about 7 months now, I want to say, or 6 months going. Well, appreciate Daryl having me on his channel here today, and I'm going to be here guiding him along through the problems, common problems between JKs and JLs. So hopefully, this will be some very good information for you guys, for anyone in the future that's looking to purchase a JK or JL, and kind of help you through the process of what to look for and what you can expect as an owner for your JK JL platforms.
I guess let's start with the common problems that are consistent between like the JK and the JL platform.
Yeah.
Are there things that you would look for?
Yeah. So basic things on JK JL. Both really well design platforms.
Okay.
Common things that do happen on them, depending on like the mileage that you're looking at, probably 60,000 miles. Common things that we normally see are like oil cooler leakings, front timing cover leaks, and then there are chances where they come about where anything around like 70,000 miles we start getting some a little bit of rocker arm failure.
Okay.
But that's also due to like lack of maintenance. So when you're looking at these vehicles, a Carfax is definitely a great thing to look at. Definitely want to just see the type of maintenance history or the maintenance records that are on this vehicle, just to see how well up to date this vehicle has been taken care of. I guess I should say.
So what is, I haven't heard of that issue with the front timer cover leaking. What exactly is that?
So the front timing cover is basically a cover that goes basically on the front of the motor.
Okay.
It covers up the timing chain and other components.
Okay.
It's a seal, so over time when it does heat up a lot over time, it becomes very soft and brittle, and it causes like seepage and kind of like eventually to like an oil leak. But we try to catch that.
So it kind of looks like an oil leak then underneath the.
Well, right on the front of the motor,
Okay.
right by the AC compressors and by the belts. So we'll be able to point it out.
Oh, so
to
you
guys.
see it. You actually see it in the front of the engine,
Yep,
and
that's
eventually go down underneath, but you'll actually see it on the front.
That's correct. Yeah. So we try to capture it right when it's at its seepage stage, so that we can make customers aware of it.
Okay.
So
now is that a JK and a JL thing, or is that?
Yeah, JK and JLs. Yep, that's correct.
Can you talk about oil cooler, oil housing filter kind of issue?
Yes.
Now I'm assuming that's still a problem on the JL versus the JK. Is that it's the same design, isn't it?
Same design, yeah, but not so often on the JLs.
Really?
They have like upgraded the parts as far as like gaskets and the actual like material.
Okay.
So we don't see it too often on JLs, but JK is definitely, we do see it a lot on those 3.6s.
Now the oil filter kind of cooler leaking issue, is that something that you see on top of the engine, or is that only really something you usually see underneath the engine?
So normally we'll catch a lot of the oil cooler leaks. So what'll end up happening is it'll drip down to the bottom of the motor, and then they'll eventually start leaking onto the
on the pavement or something like that.
Yeah, on the pavement, and then also right on like that transmission housing itself, right on the outside, and they'll kind of just drip right down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other common issue that we kind of talked about just briefly was the rocker arm issue.
Yes.
So can you talk about that issue?
Yes. So rocker arm issues are, I mean, not so common, but they do happen. Okay. What symptoms of that will be kind of like a misfire type feel. Usually either like at cold start or even like in an active misfire that's staying even when the vehicle is running. So ways for us to kind of like figure out and diagnose if there are rocker arm issues. One could be a noise that's going on while the vehicle's running at idle.
Kind of the famous ticking noise.
Correct.
Tick, 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 tick,
that's
tick,
correct. for things like that, we'll plug into the vehicle, seeing what active codes there are. If there's a misfire,
Okay.
First thing we're gonna check are see if it's spark
Is the
plugs.
misfire kind of later on in the issue? So initially it's kind of more of a ticking, and then later on it becomes more of a misfire, or is it?
So not necessarily. So sometimes even like when rocker arms are starting to begin to go, there might
Okay.
not be a noise.
Okay.
So once those rocker arms are starting becoming a little more play on them, they could start the cause of like a misfire feel,
Okay.
and then the computer itself might recognize that there might be a misfire in one of the cylinders.
Okay.
For things us to verify before we even have to conduct a teardown is we'll go through a diagnosis process. Just a short synopsis of like what we do is, we swap out spark plugs, swap out the ignition coils, and then also, swap out injectors.
Okay.
If the misfire were to stay in that certain specific cylinder, then, we're gonna go ahead and conduct our leak down test, and then also our compression test, and see, what's going on. And then once we see those tests, and then we're gonna go ahead and recommend that tear down.
Okay.
And then upon tear down, that's when we conduct our inspections.
Of the rocker arms. or of
Rocker
the whole
arms,
thing,
the camshaft lobes, removing the head if we have to,
Okay.
Inspecting valves, see if there's any bent valves or anything.
Okay.
But yeah, rocker issues are common. Another common thing I would probably say is head gasket failure as well, where you'll get some coolant going down to the cylinders themselves,
Okay.
which can also cause a misfire at cold start.
Okay.
So those are probably the two more common things. Valve issues, not so much, but I have seen them.
Okay.
But again, don't let this steer you away from purchasing your next Jeep. Yeah, for sure. It's just like any make and model in the
Every
industry.
vehicle's gonna have some
Every vehicle is
problems,
gonna have some type of problem.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of you as the owner,
Yeah.
ensuring that you take care of your vehicle, the best way you can.
Sure.
It's not expected for you to, take care of your car in for maintenance every 30 days, but at least do the basic maintenance where, your vehicle stays healthy, almost just like your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta eat well,
so
exercise,
eat
get
well,
sleep.
exercise, get an adequate amount of sleep. So treat it as you would yourself,
Okay.
because if you neglect, your car's gonna fail, just like your body. If you were
Sure.
to neglect your body, your body's just gonna shut down over time.
So I'm kind of knowledgeable on the rocker arm issue.
Mm-hmm.
So from what I understand, Jeep did a kind of revision on the rocker arms in mid 2014. So up until that point, it was kind of a problematic, and then they updated the rocker arms. So mid 2014 or so is when new rocker arms or different rocker arms were included in the engine. But even those, there are some failures occasionally on those. So as a consumer, if I'm looking at it at a Wrangler, or I guess any sort of Pentastar V6, what would be the best way for me to determine if there was an impending rocker arm failure? So I've heard Jeeps that have a significant tick to it. I can hear it just outside of the car, or even inside the cabin. I can hear that tick, and then other Jeeps, Wranglers, I don't hear that tick. Is there some sort of a kind of a fail-safe way? Is if I'm, turning that Jeep on, that I can kind of be, well, I think this one's okay, and this one I know I've got a problem, and I should stay away from it.
As far as like trying to predetermine if you have potential rocker arm failure, it's definitely hard.
Okay.
I would say, even with like the most experience, it's something that you could definitely try to listen for like noises for sure.
Okay.
If you feel like you do hear abnormal, substantial like amount of noise, I definitely bring it up as a concern.
Okay.
So that way we can take a look at it, or whatever Jeep dealership you're looking to purchase your next Jeep at, bring it up to them and let them know. Because sometimes, just depending, we're talking about like the 3.6 platform here.
That's right.
So if you're hearing more like abnormal noises, definitely bring it up for sure,
Okay.
and seeing what it could potentially be. But as far as trying to predetermine and knowing like to try to catch rocker arm failure, it's hard.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely hard because it's not one of those things that'll just come up right in front of you and be like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going now,
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
But there are ways to prevent it. There, just keeping
Making
up to date oil changes
Okay,
and basic
oil
maintenance.
changes,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So Kevin, I did hear something about sometimes some rear axle leaking. I think it was mostly on the JK platform. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so there is an open recall out for them. I believe I want to say they're between 16s to 18s.
Okay.
On your JK platforms for rear axle seal recall leaking. So best thing I say is like before you even purchase a vehicle, just check and see if there's any open recalls done on the car. If there are, get them done before you even purchase the vehicle.
Okay.
But if you buy them here at our Jeep dealership, any open recalls, we
guys
like to
take
take
care
care
of
of them before the vehicle is even sold.
Okay.
If parts are available, we'll knock it out before it even hits the show, like the show lot room or
Okay.
show floor room, whatever you want to say it.
The parking lot.
The parking lot, yeah, the parking lot. Yeah, so yeah, if you have any open recalls, definitely look into it. Just ask. It's a simple question. Do I have any open recalls in this car?
Yeah.
And just get them done for sure. So it's less visits for you to the dealership, and the only thing you should be coming to us is for your preventive maintenance stuff. But yeah, so the rear axle seal leaking on those, super noticeable. You'll notice it right away. So if you just take a peek right at your rear axle, either on your rear driver or rear passenger side, you'll see a bunch of like buildup of like oil that are around there with like some dirt, just depending on how dirty it might be.
Okay.
But you'll notice it right away if it's
Is
actually
it like an
leaking.
active leak, or is it you'll just see kind of a buildup of
You'll
oil?
build up with oil, yeah. It can get, if it's been leaking for a while,
Really
it
bad.
could become an active leak for sure.
Okay.
But a lot of it usually just like build up around the hub itself.
Okay.
Yep.
So Kevin, we talked about some of the common problems in the JK and the JL platforms on the 3.6 Pentastar. Can you talk about the pricing to fix those problems that we talked about?
Yeah, so as far as like the common issues go, whether oil cooler leaking, rocker arm failure, time and cover reseals. So if they weren't covered by warranty, what you can expect as far as pricing goes.
Okay.
So for oil cooler replacements, you could expect to pay anywhere between $1,400 parts and labor before taxes.
Okay.
Rocker arm replacements, you'll be looking anywhere between $2,300, $2,400.
Okay.
Ballpark estimate before taxes. Time and cover reseals, roughly around the same price, probably close to around like $2,000, $2,100.
Okay.
Ballpark estimate.
Okay.
Parts and labor, and then if you were to do like head gaskets, maybe a little more labor extensive on that one, so probably
Okay.
closer to like the 3,000 mark.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. We talked a little bit about the pre-purchase inspection.
Yes.
Do you guys have a set price at your dealership? Like, so if I am looking at a car, I'm not buying it from your dealership, but let's say I'm looking at a car as a private seller, and I've kind of looked at it, it seems okay, and if I say, hey, can you guys take a look at this and do a pre-purchase inspection on it? Do you know what kind of charge I'd be looking at and the kinds of things that you do to inspect it as a pre-purchase inspection?
Yeah. So now, as far as like a pre-purchase inspection will go, so we'll do our our standard multi-point inspections, which we offer for to a lot of our customers that come in for service.
Okay.
So whenever they bring in, just even for their standard oil changes, we'll do a multi-point inspection, ensuring that everything from the tires to brakes to suspension pieces, any leaks or noticeable leaks inside the engine bay. And then, just kind of like a basic, and if we notice something, then we'll bring it up to the customer.
Okay.
But if you were a person that were looking to do like a PPI, like a pre-purchase inspection, we do welcome them in. Average cost on them, and I want to say with taxes, I think it's like around 150. I want to say
Okay.
150, 160.
Okay.
What it'll do is, we'll go through our checklist, look it over, see if there's anything that might be noticeable that should be brought up before you even purchase your Jeep, so that you're more comfortable owning it.
Do you put a code reader on it just to make sure that there's no codes?
We can run, yep. So we can plug in, so we'll connect it to our YTech system and
Okay.
see if there's any active codes in there as
Okay.
well. Yeah. So every vehicle that we, when we go through our check-in process, we plug all our vehicles in with what we call our pods.
Okay.
And then, so that way, when we're checking in a customer's vehicle, we could check if there's any active DTCs or any stored DTCs, just so we can make the customer aware of it.
Yeah.
That, hey, I don't know if you've noticed, but you have some coats that are on the vehicle, just so they're aware, knowing that they didn't come to the dealership and left with the dealership with some new issues. Yeah. So for sure.
My next question is kind of on modifying a Jeep.
Yes.
And so I mean, the Jeeps are kind of sort of made to be modified. There's so many third-party parts for it out there.
100%.
Folks, lift them and they put bigger tires on them and, put the winches on them, new bumpers, all that kind of stuff. So if I'm buying a used Jeep and let's say it's been lifted, as a potential owner of that vehicle, what are the kind of things that I should be looking for just to make sure, that work has been done correctly?
As far as that goes, trying to eye like another person's work, especially if you aren't the one installing it yourself.
Yeah.
If they have it, invoices. Invoices for sure.
Okay.
So at least
what they bought, who installed it.
That's correct.
That's a good.
I think having some type of record of who did it, where it was done,
so
what was done.
So you can make sure that is a good shop and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the shops, they definitely go off of word of mouth.
Okay. You're right.
So you build your brand, you build
loyalty with the customers.
Yeah. So a lot of it does have to go off that as far as like work goes.
Okay.
But if you feel like it looks off, it might be off. Just trust your gut sometimes.
Yeah.
Try not to like push it away, especially like right after you've signed your papers and now you're stuck with a car that has everything built upside down. But yeah, a lot of things to just look at is like brands as well. What type of parts that they use in a car. Is it some cheap eBay lift kits
cheap Amazon thing or something like that? Yeah,
that might last you like 2 blocks down the road.
Yeah.
Or did they go with like more well-known bigger brands, or they did the Jeep dealership do it themselves and they come like that from the factory.
Yeah.
Factory ones are always going to be the best, of course. One, because the warranties are, of course, a lot easier.
Yeah.
But there's just things that you just want to like eye out. But I want to say brand and then where it was done.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
Now I'd like to talk a little bit about something Jeepers call death wobble. So can you talk about what death wobble is? What are some of the common reasons for actually death wobble happening? And then kind of how you troubleshoot death wobble if you get a Jeep into your dealership that has the problem.
Yeah, of course. So death wobble, it's definitely brought up, a couple times, here and there from customers. What death wobble is oscillation of the vehicle. Whether if you're going on highway speeds or just hitting a normal speed bump, and then you just notice to happen that your vehicle is moving all over the place.
You guys don't like to call it death wobble?
Yeah, so we don't call it death wobble here. We call it oscillating.
Okay.
That's what we call it. But per the manufacturer, death wobble, it's self-explanatory, I guess, in a sense.
Unless you've been in a Jeep that is actually doing it.
Yeah. So it's the actual term we call it is oscillation.
Okay.
So as far as like oscillation goes on a vehicle, there could be multiple things that can actually cause it. It's pretty complex, but I'll run down the basics.
Okay.
A couple of things that you want to look at is, if the vehicle's factory, is it stock or is there a lot of aftermarket parts that are completed on the vehicle?
Okay.
Normally, if it's aftermarket, there's a lot that could be in play, whether it be suspension, alignment, tires. Same thing with factory. Whenever we take a look at the cars, we take a look at, has the tires been changed out on the vehicle? What's the overall condition of the tires? And then also just how does the customer drive the vehicle overall? Okay. Now it's case by case scenario. Certain things can cause it. So it just really depends, and then that's where we get into the diagnosis portion of it, and to try to figure out what's causing the so-called death wobble on the car.
So what's the first thing, or what's the first couple of things that you check for when you're looking at death wobble?
Yeah, so for death wobble, how we diagnose this at our dealership level. So per our engineers, what we have to do first is confirm the tire balancing. What we do is remove all tires in the vehicle.
Do you take it for a test drive first to try to see if you can get it to actually have the death wobble, or you just kind of go straight into checking the tires?
Yeah, so it really depends. So it depends on the weather conditions as well.
Okay.
So whether being like wet outside, like today, for instance, here in Vegas, we've been getting a lot of rain, or whether it's like dry out. So sometimes yes, we would take it on a road test first to try to confirm the feel.
Okay.
But what we do as well is confirming the balancing of the tires.
Okay.
We'll road force the tires first. Check if there's any rounding on the actual tires themselves to find any.
Can you explain what road force balancing is?
Yeah, so what road force balancing is we put it on a machine, and what it does reenacts the actual road, I guess I would say, in a sense.
Okay.
Kind of like break it down. It reads any abnormalities inside the tire. So
Okay.
whether it being, the tire being rounded out, the flat spotting on the tires, we'll be able to see that and kind of compare all 4 tires to see what abnormalities there are, if it's a huge difference, a small difference, or none at all.
Okay.
So that's what we do. So we report those abnormalities to Chrysler, and then after that, we'll also confirm the alignment on the actual vehicle.
Okay.
To make sure that it's not, the alignment itself isn't out of spec
Okay.
per the manufacturer, making sure that everything is well within manufacturer specs. And then we'll go ahead and road test the vehicle and see if that death wobble, well, so-called death wobble, or what we call oscillation, is
Fixes
still
itself,
there. And if the issue itself still isn't corrected, then we'll go ahead and overlook the suspension.
Okay.
More common things that can cause that wobble is due to air getting trapped in the steering damper.
Is that the steering stabilizer?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the steering stabilizer, steering damper.
Okay.
What normally happens is there's air gets trapped inside it, so it doesn't rebound, so it doesn't help the vehicle as much whenever it comes to the actual oscillation or death wobble itself.
Track bars, you guys check the track bar?
We'll check track bars, but it just really depends. If they're factory or aftermarket.
Okay. Are there certain things that person should do when they're test driving it to try to determine whether or not that particular Jeep might have that death wobble issue?
Easiest way to really determine, if you have this death wobble that's going on, is taking the vehicle on highway speeds.
Okay.
Yeah, 75, like anywhere between 65, 70 miles, whatever state permitted is.
Yeah.
Don't go speeding and catch a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
Taking another road test and trying just feeling for it. Death wobble, you normally feel it immediately.
Okay.
Or like sometimes, like when just even the slightest bump, you'll feel it. You'll feel it, the whole car basically just oscillating.
So we kind of covered the JK and JL from the 3.6 side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you seeing anything on the other engines? So we've got the 2-liter turbo, the 3-liter diesel, and the 392 Rubicon.
Yes.
So
yeah. So I'll start. Let me start with the top, the 392s that we have now. Great car, beautiful.
Yeah.
Great Wrangler. If you could get it, buy it.
Yeah, I test drove one yesterday, so you'll see that.
Yeah, they sound great. I mean, cold start sounds amazing on them.
I know.
So as far as 392s, I haven't seen too many common issues with
Okay.
it being so new.
Yeah.
We haven't had any issues with like 392s.
But that
or
392
common to-
engine's been out for a while, so yeah.
So yeah, it's a well-made Jeep for sure. I haven't had any problems that come up to me yet. They're like so severe. The main things that I've been seeing with 392s right now is just oil changes.
Okay.
Normal oil changes, tire rotations, and that's about it. That's the only times I've really been seeing them.
Okay.
Your 2.0s, those turbos, there is not with many of them, but there was I believe it was a water pump recall for the threads on them. So we had to basically like rebolt the water pumps down. If you have that recall, please take care of that immediately.
Okay.
Reason for that is these 2.0s are very, very sensitive. The minute it does overheat, that motor is done.
Okay.
So the motor would have to be replaced on them.
Okay.
Now the 3.6s on them for the new GLs, it's great. It's good.
Yeah.
A lot of the issues that they've had back when in the JK platforms, not so prominent anymore.
Because they did come out with new version of that
New
Pentastar
version,
engine,
yeah.
right?
So the updated version is definitely a lot better,
A lot
less
more
issues,
reliable.
a lot more reliable,
Okay.
for sure. So if I, I wanted to get my own personal, preference here, if I were to choose a JK or JL, I'd probably say JL for sure.
Okay.
Features definitely look a lot better. Interior looks way more modern than
Yeah, it does. It does.
the outdated JK interior. But the JK is still a great, still a great Jeep. It's great for off-roading for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I did with mine. Diesel's great too. I mean, great gas mileage. The diesels are almost averaging like city around like 28, almost like 30 miles a gallon.
I got like 34 miles per gallon doing a freeway loop
Yeah.
on a diesel. It's amazing.
Yeah, the diesel is great. There are the recalls on them though for the high pressure fuel pumps. The recall is now available on parts to be ordered. They are taking a couple weeks to get done.
Oh, okay.
A couple weeks for us to receive them.
Oh, okay.
But
I didn't know actually the parts were available yet.
yeah, so parts are available on them now as well for this high pressure fuel pump. So we are knocking them out, a couple cars at a time.
So, if you were to choose a JL engine, which one would you choose?
If I
So
choose,
for two things, one for
Yeah.
just because for you, and I think that would be the 392, and the other one would be for. So that's not, you could say that, but
Yeah.
and the other one is for reliability. So let's say you wanted to keep the Jeep for 15 years or so. What engines would you choose, do you think?
Me personally, yeah. So if I were to choose, of course I'm gonna say 392, but I feel like it's just being biased and just going for the top of the line, Wrangler that
Well,
we
it's
have out right
fine.
now. Yeah. But next best one, I mean, the 2.0s are definitely great too. So the 4xe that we have that are going on, it's a great platform. As long as if you do have that, again, if you have that recall, take care of it right away. Just stay up to date with the maintenance. I mean, the new 4xe hybrid type deal system that we got going on, definitely a new system for sure. We're all still getting comfortable and familiar with it, but we haven't had like many issues with them, coming in. So a lot of them are just coming in for the routine maintenance, which is good signs.
Yeah.
You're seeing them, driving like 20, 25,000 miles with no like signs of any leakages or any type of leakage, oil leaks, any problems or concerns. So that's normally a good sign for a vehicle that hey, it's well designed
for a brand new
thing.
engine. Yeah, that's really good. All right, Kevin. So one of the things that, of course, we should do when we're checking out a Jeep is doing a test drive. So what are your recommendations to a potential Jeep owner when they're test driving a Wrangler?
Recommendations as far as like test drive it like it's yours, definitely for sure. If you're about to purchase a vehicle and you're about to sign that dotted line, depending if you're financing or you're buying it straight out, definitely drive it like it's yours. One thing I would always say is, city driving and then highway driving. Highway driving is definitely where you'll definitely feel the most. Taking it up, feeling the shifting on the transmission, seeing if there's any abnormal jerking, like hard shifting while the vehicle is like, going into gears. And then when you're slowing down, seeing if you feel any thumping or anything like that, that you can show signs of slipping while it's downshifting or possible loose motor mounts. You can normally feel that. When you're braking, especially like, slowing down coming from highway speeds, do you feel any vibrations on the rotors, showing signs for like warped rotors? Paying attention to the steering as well. Finding like
vibrations in the steering wheel.
Finding a road that's straight, letting go of the steering wheel, seeing if the car pulls left or right. So basic things like that. Testing, of course, all the options that are in the vehicle, whatever comes with it. Testing your Uconnect, make sure it connects to your radio. Does the Bluetooth connect to your phone? Do all the dials functions from the heater controls to volume switches, to even like the gear shifter, the e-brake, testing all that, touch everything that you see. Now I want to say, definitely touch everything that you see.
I think there had been some issues with like overheating sometimes in Jeeps. Maybe if the radiator is going out, or like with the 2.0 with the water pump going out. So I guess first thing is on the JK or JL on 3.6, is that one of the common things that you see sometimes, issues with the with overheating, and is that something when you're doing a test drive that you should pay kind of close attention to?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, when you're going in a test drive, to monitor the coolant temperature on the vehicle. Yeah, just saying if that needle is going up or if it's staying consistent at right where it should be while the
Should be
vehicle's
right
at
in the,
operating
right in the
temperature.
center, huh?
Right in the center, yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. A little bit of fluctuation can be normal.
Okay.
Of course, that has a lot to play with, like where you live, elevation as well.
Okay.
But yeah, where you really want to be is to make sure that thing is like right in the center.
Yeah.
And if you're going way past that, and, of course you have signs of overheating issue, and you probably should step away from the car.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we're focusing on purchasing from a private party, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the benefits of purchasing actually from a Jeep dealership. So you could talk about that a little bit, Kevin?
Yeah, for sure. So the benefits and definitely major plus sides. At least when I'm looking for a vehicle too, is purchasing it from the actual brand of the actual dealership.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you're looking for your next Jeep, I always recommend it. Purchasing not just not specifically just by like from us, here in Vegas. We would love your business for sure. But buying it from like an actual Jeep dealership, because especially if you're looking for used, we do go through them. We do certify these vehicles.
Yep.
So we do look for anything and everything, and especially like the common problem is to making sure that we're not passing over a Jeep to you that isn't worth your time.
Okay.
And then the plus sides too, when you're going through your financing and stuff, you'll be able to purchase your Mopar contracts, right when you're getting your deal done. So you'll be able to work those into your deals. Now versus compared to buying like at your local used car dealership, they might have done a basic maybe 50 point, maybe 30 point like inspection.
Right.
They'll take it on a test drive. Yeah, everything is good to go type thing.
Yeah.
Versus at a dealership level where we do put it up on the lift, take all the wheels off, inspect it, test drive it ourselves, making sure that it's good to go.
Okay.
So I think those are going to be the plus sides of buying it from the dealership. Don't let the dealership prices scare you away. So they work deals.
Yeah.
So you might get a better deal at the dealership than you do at a used car lot. So definitely don't just purchase your first Jeep because you found a good deal that you might have thought have been a good deal at a used car lot, versus you might get the same deal here at the dealership level, which runs a million times better.
Okay.
So definitely just weigh your options for sure. Just don't buy that first one that you see.
All right, Kevin. So let's say you buy your Wrangler from either another dealership that isn't a Jeep dealership, or you buy it from a private party. I heard from your boss that it might be possible to actually get a service contract for that particular Jeep, up to about 125,000 miles. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So case by case scenario. So depending on the year, make, and mileage of the vehicle.
Okay.
So Mopar contracts are available to actually like Mopar vehicles. So for instance, we're talking about Jeeps here. So you can come to a Jeep dealership. You could come see me if you want to go over terms, conditions, how it works. And then we could go ahead and explain as far as how service contracts work and how we provide them to our customers. As far as service contracts go, not super complex, but we could run it down by details. If it's something that you guys would like to talk about in the future, definitely give me a call. I'll give you guys my direct line here. Feel free to reach out. It's 702-432-2092. And again, that's 702-432-2092.
And that's just a nice peace of mind if you're buying your Jeep from somewhere else. And
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So service contracts are worth the money, especially when it comes to bigger jobs, kind of like what we were talking about before, to help cover, rocker arm replacements, timing cover reseals, oil cooler replacements, big jobs like that which can cost, a couple $1,000s once in a while. It could definitely help with those expenses, and the only thing you'll have is your deductible, whether it being $100 or $200. So if you verse a $3,000 repair, you have a $200 deductible. I mean, you're right there alone. That contract pays for itself.
yeah, that's awesome. I think the last thing I want to talk about, Kevin, before we actually go in the shop and start checking things out, is there's some talks on the forums about electrical issues on the Jeeps, on the new Jeeps, but in reality, I don't think it's actually electrical issues. Really, it has to do with the batteries and the start-stop system. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that's super common here in Vegas is auto start-stop service messages coming on, especially at the peak of summer when we have 100 to 130 degree weather going on.
Sure.
It's not an electrical issue. It's nothing that's poorly designed or anything like that. The reason for it, the most thing that we see, 9.5 times out of 10, is due to battery failure. So whether it being your main battery or the auxiliary battery, most Jeeps now come with two batteries. So you'll have your main source and then you'll have your auxiliary source. It's just the battery overworking themselves. Unfortunately, it gets severely hot here. It'll be 120 degrees, but it'll probably feel like it's 130.
Yeah.
You know, the minute you step out, almost to a point where your skin feels like it's burning.
Yeah.
So you got to look at these batteries. So you have a car that's running operational temp, normal average, 190, maybe 200 degrees. So you have your engine temperature plus the outside influence temperature, and then you're running your air conditioner, you know, probably every day, most of the time, you know, not shutting it off. So the batteries themselves are just getting overworked. At least here in Vegas, on average, you'll probably get a lifespan of 2 to 3 years on a battery, just because of the high excessive heats that we have here. So it's more common for battery replacements to happen in the summertime for sure, versus in the winter. But don't blame it on a poor product that was made. It's definitely not. It's just because of where we live, especially here in Vegas.
Yeah.
So we do get a lot of complaints in regards to it, but unfortunately, like, you know, a battery can only withstand so much heat until it becomes, you know, boils itself.
So be proactive.
Be
in
proactive,
getting those things replaced.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So just know, like, you know, if you're coming up 2 years, maybe 3 years, and just know that I might have to change my battery here soon before the next summer hits, type thing.
Okay, cool. So I just want to thank Kevin here. Was very gracious with his time, and everybody from Chapman Jeep Las Vegas for making this video possible. Without their help, I could have never have done this. If you did like the content, please like the video, and I've got a lot more content to come, including my next video, which is actually Kevin here inspecting a Jeep Wrangler and showing you what to look for. And so yeah, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in that next one again very soon.